So today, the lesson title is The Language of Love. And the language of love, the title came from Sermon by the Sea. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, delivered a sermon by the sea in Asilomar, the last Asilomar that he was at. And so I'll talk a little bit more and quote from that sermon, but I want to begin with something that allows each of you to engage in the chat together. I want to know, how does God or spirit or higher power, whatever name you use for your God, how does God speak to you? And I put speak in quotes because that's a hint that it may or may not be in words how it is that your higher power speaks to you. So if you'll just enter into the chat and share with everybody, how is it that spirit speaks to you? And I know that during these times, people may ask, is spirit speaking to me? Am I hearing spirit? Where is that higher power or that God? I want to hear you. I want to know you. I want to see you. I want to experience you. And it's hard to experience listening or hearing the language of God, experiencing the language of God, if we're in fear. For fear actually shrinks us, makes us smaller, shuts us down as we become perhaps hyper alert and focused on the potential threat. But as we are in our home and as we center in our beingness of each moment, can we open and allow to, again, having the opportunity to be open to what it is that spirit is trying to say to you? Also, when we are in judgment or when we are critical, then we're focused on what's not right, what's limiting, and what we claim is not good as seen by human judgment. But if we are open and allowing with ease that what is goodness, what can I see that is goodness? What can I become aware of that is goodness? Moving ourselves to the opening and allowing, moving ourselves to see the God, which is the goodness in life. And also to hear the language of God speaking to you. When we're being resistant or needing control, then we want to stop what is. We want to try to force some energy to go a particular way. But we can actually redirect our energy to open and allow. Again, to let the flow of what is be. And in that open and accepting of what is, it actually allows the perfection of life to come into our awareness. A greater awareness of the perfection of life that is being expressed right here and right now. So it's important that as we talk about what is the language of God and how do you experience God speaking to you, is to making sure that in your space and time that you allow for an openness and a flow. I know for myself that after working at the university this last week, I could see myself starting to get agitated because things weren't necessarily going the way I wanted them to go. And of course, we're all working in an entirely different environment. And when I allowed myself to just step back and say, allow what is, it's all good. It's all God. I am not in control here, but rather I can allow how I respond to what is going on, and I can surround it in love and light, and I can be with it, even though it may not be comfortable. I can be with it, and therefore, excuse me, and therefore allow and let the flow of life move forward without feeling like I am getting in the way. So how does God speak to you? Let's see if I can see in the chat. So great. Some of the things that I can see here is how does God speak to you? Love it in the stillness. Yes, in other words, in the silence. When we say the language of God, we frequently might be thinking that that means we're listening for specific things, but Being in the silence allows spirit to speak. Through intuition, through pictures, things that may show up in your life, through becoming aware of the emotions that move through you, by experiencing nature. And I love to experience nature when I go into Bidwell Park, frequently thinking, what if I had never seen any of this before? And then just being in the glory and the awe of that which is in this beautiful place called Bidwell Park in Chico, California. So also, spirit speaks through creativity. As you open yourself and allow, then perhaps you are inspired, and there are things that come to you about what you can do in this time and space, and how can you create, and that spirit actually being personalized through you as these ideas come come up and move through you, and then being able to act on those creative juices is a wonderful way to allow God to speak. Yeah, and sometimes God speaks through the song that shows up. Sometimes just moving into the space of music, as we have done a little bit today, allows for spirit to move through the music, which moves our heart without having to go through our mind, and a wonderful way that God can speak to us. In meditation, the opportunity again to quiet the mind and just tune into the listening, seeing what shows up for you. For transcendental meditation, one of the things they talk about is what shows up needs to be seen, needs to be allowed to move through you, and then you can move on to the next either quiet moment or what pops up next for you. And God speaks to you perhaps through the thoughtful gestures of others. This is perfect because it aligns with the lesson. And as you turn into your heart space, not just focusing on peace, but becoming peace, moving yourself into that peace. And spirit speaks through the awareness when you allow yourself that space and time. And when you witness others either expressing through each other in a conversation or doing an activity together, it is God speaking through those individuals to the one witnessing. And through synchronicities and sometimes things that show up that just say, you are in your divine right place and it is all in divine right order. Love that. And I, of course, knowing that I usually, when I'm live with all of you, get to ask questions and hear the answers. Thank you very much for chatting. That was wonderful. I really appreciate that. So in Sermon by the Sea, Dr. Ernest Holmes says, find me one person who knows how to talk to God, really, and I shall walk with him through the woods. And everything that seems inanimate will respond. The leaves of trees will clap their hands. The grass will grow soft under him. So let's take that one more time. Find me one person who knows how to really talk to God, and I shall walk with him through the woods. And the emphasis being, and everything that seems inanimate will respond. So that is a deep sense of oneness and connectedness. Finding the person who speaks or talks to God is moving into that space, into that deep oneness and connectedness of where spirit is, and expressing the language of God, which there are many attributes of God. You know, when I read the quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes, I got an image of Saint Francis of Assisi, who exuded peace as he walked. You frequently see pictures of Saint Francis with animals surrounding him, so birds and rabbits and deer and much of nature. And I believe because he was one who knew how to talk to God And when he walked in the woods, he exuded the peace in which the animals could feel that peace and that love and that presence. So even though when we say talk to God, people may think, am I speaking the right words to be talking to God? Well, of course, God knows what you think before you say anything. And God is always present, always in the place where you are. It's just a matter of us turning to God, to that presence, and using words to align ourselves into the presence of knowing this truth. So we use words to move ourselves into the alignment of truth. What does that mean? You know, the language of God is only truth, which is peace, power, beauty, joy, love, life, light, wisdom, harmony, oneness, strength. And it's not those words, but it's peace as in the actual presence of peace. The language of God is power, not the word, but the actual being in that power as you align with that presence. The language of God is beauty, not the word beauty, but the actual expression of beauty through you. And with all the other attributes, the language of God is not so much about the words, but us using the words to align where the presence of God is, which is the presence where we are. So it's a matter of us embodying these attributes and these truths for ourselves. And the language of God is very personal when we personify it, because the language of God is really impersonal from a perspective of it's a universal power and everybody can use it. Everybody can use the language of God. Everybody can leverage the truth, can be in the truth, can be present with truth. But we personalize it by using our words, moving our mind, moving our heart, and becoming present of the love that is in us, the joy that is in us, the beauty that is in us. And that becomes the personified language of God through us. So at any point in time, I may be exuding the presence of God through love, while somebody else may be exuding the presence of God through peace. It's all one, it's all there, it's all present. It's us moving ourselves into that space to be present with God, our higher expression. So, in these times of the coronavirus, certainly at a historic time for all of us to be a light in the world. Just looking at that background, we are the light of the world. We are the net of light surrounding the world. As you see right there, that horizon of light, imagine that being the light of each of us on earth, connected to one another. And so how are you using this space and time and this knowing to connect with your higher power? Are you listening? Are you allowing? Are you being of the majority of time in the space of this knowing? I know that we need to check the news, to not be ignorant of where things are and where things are at in order to learn what's expected of us, in order to learn from one another. But we don't want to let that drama or trauma or fear or any other essence of what the news or what we're reading become the dominance of our day. So I found an article from Deepak Chopra from CNBC. And he was saying that the spiritual effect of COVID-19 outbreak cannot be neglected. So are you being the center of spiritual living, and are you committed to your spiritual practice? Because now is the time to practice. Deepak goes on to say, in a time of crisis, the impulse is to give in to the fear, the concern, the panic, the anxiety, which engenders an epidemic of soul sickness. And he goes on to speak about the soul and say the soul is the most intimate part of us. And we can't find that intimate part of us by running away, by allowing ourselves to be distracted, by allowing ourselves to be pulled into the appearances of the world without bringing ourselves back to our soul, to our presence, and knowing our truth so that we can again bring that light to our living and to the light for others. So Chopra was suggesting that we, for our physical needs, consider yoga and stretching, walking, being present, doing our physical to move the energy through us. And then for mental needs, doing meditation, finding ways to relax, and finding some joy. And finding joy could be calling up your family. Finding joy could be following up on an idea that you have. It could be creating something. It could be, what is your creative expression that perhaps finds you some joy? And then he wanted to emphasize that just these things in the physical and mental area help boost our immune system, which are, of course, anti-stress remedies. And then he moved into and so how do we improve the state of our soul in this time? And he begins by saying, well, through generosity, through being of service to each other, performing acts of kindness, which in this moment means calls, cards, email, texting, connecting with another, because that connection and that opportunity to be generous with your time and of your love as you speak with one another and remind yourself of the connection and the truth for each other, mirror each other, and have that conversation where God speaks. Generosity and being of service. Improving the state of the soul is also practicing gratitude. And maybe not just, again, saying the words, thank you, thank you, thank you, but literally moving yourself into a state of gratitude. As the law of attraction likes to say, go through a rampage of gratitude. And of course, the law of attraction, if you go online, has a gratitude journal. And there are, of course, many other places you can go that have lots of prompts for questions to move into gratitude, perhaps starting a gratitude journal to allow yourself to, again, move into that space of gratitude, move your heart, connect with your soul about what it is right here and now that you know you are grateful for, that you are appreciating, which of course means growing in value and understanding. Of course, I'm inserting prayer and music. Again, those are tools that automatically move us into our higher knowing. And Deepak Chopra also said, do something you love, just as we talked about there in the chat. Enjoy what brings you peace. And hopefully that includes the opportunity to take the time to love yourself, especially through the rough bouts. Loving yourself even if you're cranky. Loving yourself even if you're feeling cabin fever. Loving that part of yourself, being open and accepting of that, and allowing the love to surround that, allow that emotion to move through you, because it too shall pass. And loving yourself means creating your own spa, figuring out how you can do that for yourself or for your family if you're living with others. So that was the article from Deepak Chopra, which I found very helpful. And I'd also like to bring up that the book of the month is The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease. And Amy Roberts mentioned this book to me last year. And as I started reading it, I chose it for the bookmark for the month of April, because that's usually when we all do our taxes. But I have to be frank with you that this book, while it's The Illusion of Money, is actually very good for the current times, because the principles he's speaking to go beyond money. And Kyle Cease clearly communicates how to get beyond the appearances. Of course, He's using the appearances of money, but it can be the appearances of anything else that is expressing in your life. So it's easy to read. And I want to read from one of his chapters called Unconditional Love on page 149. And if you will allow me to read, it says, underneath the illusion of money, or our need to own something, or to chase something, or to find security in something outside of us, there's just love. When we're not in our head planning or fixing or regretting something we've done, what shows up is love. Because that's what you are, pure, unconditional love. Now, love can be kind of a vague term that many people might associate with approval or attachment or dependency. But I see love as the feeling we experience when we go beyond all the layers of ego that we happen to be seeing, like seeing something as wrong, something wrong with the world or with someone else, or even wrong with ourselves. Unconditional love is love beyond the conditions of mind. To truly love ourselves is to experience ourselves beyond all the mental judgments, comparisons, inadequacies, and conditioned patterns of unworthiness that we've picked up from the world. Beyond how much money you make and what you've achieved or what you look like and how smart you are, there is an unconditioned part of you that is a perfect reflection of the infinite love of the universe. And that's the point of this book. The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease. And so I want to end wishing you all well, knowing that love and light is indeed surrounding you. And as you come into this consciousness that we are connected, that we are one, that you are a light worker, that you are the light, that God moves through you as light. And as we connect during this time, knowing our greater truth and lifting us all up. And I hope that you, throughout this week, continue to use some of the tools, some of the principles to lift you up, to know your truth, and to live your great life. And so it is. Namaste.